The moment my mother said those words across the dinner table, something inside me just snapped. You're not half the woman your sister is. She said it so casually, like she was commenting on the weather. Like it was just a fact I should have accepted years ago. My father kept eating. My sister Naomi looked down at her plate with this little smile, like she'd been waiting for someone to finally say it out loud. I pushed my chair back. The legs scraped against the floor, and everyone looked up. Then she can start paying your rent. The room went dead silent. My father's fork froze halfway to his mouth. Rent? What rent? And that's when I realized they actually thought they'd gotten away with it. My name is Lucy Baker. I'm 29 years old, and I've spent most of my life being invisible in my own family. Not because I was shy or quiet by nature. I just learned early that in my parents' house, keeping your mouth shut was easier than fighting for attention you were never going to get anyway. I work as a financial manager at a logistics company near the Portland Harbor. It's stable, it pays well, and honestly, I like it. There's something calming about numbers. They don't lie. They don't play favorites. 2 + 2 always equals 4, whether you're the golden child or the forgotten one. My life outside of work is simple. I've got a small apartment with a view of the river. I cook pasta on weeknights, read books on the weekends, and try not to think too hard about the fact that I'm almost 30 and still showing up to my parents' house every single Friday like some kind of obligation I can't shake. Because that's the thing, I always showed up. Every Friday. Without fail. My dad used to say, "This family has a seat for you, Lucy. Don't leave it empty." Half joking, half serious. And my mom would call if I was even 5 minutes late. Family first, she'd remind me, though what she really meant was Naomi first. My sister has always been the star of the family. She's tall, confident, the kind of person who walks into a room and just expects everyone to pay attention. And they do. She was a debate champion in high school, got a full scholarship to law school, and landed a job at some prestigious firm before she even graduated. And me? I paid my own tuition at 17. Worked 2 jobs in college. Never asked for help because I learned pretty quick that asking meant getting compared to Naomi, and that comparison never ended well for me. But I kept showing up to those Friday dinners because they were family. And family was supposed to matter, right? Wrong. It took me 29 years to figure out that showing up for people who don't see you is just another way of disappearing. The dinners were always the same. Mom would make roast chicken. Dad would ask the same surface-level questions about work. Naomi would talk about her latest case or promotion or whatever impressive thing she'd done that week. And I'd sit there, pushing food around my plate, pretending the weight of being invisible didn't crush me a little more each time. But that Friday, the one that changed everything, felt different from the start. Mom kept shooting me these weird looks, like she was sizing me up for something. Naomi had this smug energy, like she knew something I didn't. Even Dad seemed off, clearing his throat every few minutes like he was working up to an announcement. I should have left right then. I should have felt that storm building and just walked out the door. But I didn't. We sat down to dinner, and like clockwork, the conversation turned to Naomi. She's presenting at a big conference next week, Mom said, beaming. They specifically asked for her. Isn't that something? She's always been exceptional, Dad added, giving Naomi this proud smile that made my stomach turn. Naomi shrugged like it was no big deal, but I could see the satisfaction on her face. Well, they know talent when they see it. I took a bite of chicken and tried to swallow the resentment along with it. I'd spent all day at work fixing a financial disaster someone else had created, saving the company thousands of dollars. But that never made it to the dinner table. My accomplishments lived in the corners of their house, tucked between junk mail and forgotten grocery lists. I tried anyway. I led a big project at work this week. My director said it was some of the best analysis he'd seen in years. Mom waved her hand like she was swatting away a fly. You're doing fine, Lucy. But Naomi's work impacts hundreds of people. It's different. That little sting, small, sharp, intentional, landed exactly where she wanted it to. I looked down at my plate and reminded myself to breathe. It was just another Friday. Just another night of biting my tongue and pretending their words didn't cut deep. But then Dad leaned back in his chair and sighed. Speaking of homes, Naomi helped us sort through some mortgage paperwork last month. She's been such a blessing. My entire body went cold. Mortgage paperwork. Blessing. Naomi grinned. It wasn't a big deal, really. Just looked over some documents. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. 3 years. 3 years of payments flashed through my mind like a slideshow I couldn't stop. Every month, without fail, I'd transferred money to keep their house from going into foreclosure. Money I should have used for vacations, for grad school, for a down payment on my own place. I'd sacrificed everything. Turned down a promotion that would have required relocation because they needed me close. Skipped my best friend's destination wedding because I couldn't afford the trip after that month's payment. Drove a car with 180,000 miles on it because a new one wasn't in the budget. I'd done it all quietly because they told me they didn't want anyone worrying. They told me it was temporary. Just this month. We'll handle it next month. Don't tell Naomi, she has enough on her plate. And now they were sitting here, rewriting history, giving Naomi credit for something she didn't do. The anger started building in my chest, slow at first, then faster, hotter, until I couldn't hold it back anymore. Mom must have seen it on my face because she gave me that look, the one that always meant stay quiet, don't make a scene, remember your place. And then she said it. You're not half the woman your sister is. The words hung in the air like poison. I don't think she expected me to respond. I think she thought I'd do what I always did, swallow it, stay silent, keep the peace. But something inside me broke. Or maybe it finally woke up. I pushed my chair back and stood up. Then she can start paying your rent. The words came out calm. Steady. Like I'd been practicing them my whole life. Dad's face went white. Rent? What rent? I looked right at him. The mortgage payments. For 3 years. Every single month. $2,300. Without fail. The shock on their faces would have been funny if it wasn't so insulting. Mom recovered first, like she always does. Lucy, don't be dramatic. We never asked you to. You did. I cut her off, and my voice was stronger now. Every month. Just this once, Lucy. We'll handle next month. Don't let the bank send a notice. I have the payments. I have the bills. I have the text messages. I have everything. Naomi's face had gone pale. Wait, what are you talking about? I turned to her. You didn't know? Of course you didn't. Because they told me not to tell you. Said you had enough stress with your important career. Dad tried to speak. Lucy, you shouldn't bring that up now. It's not appropriate. We're having a nice family dinner. Appropriate? I laughed, and it didn't sound like me at all. What's appropriate is the truth. What's inappropriate is pretending Naomi saved a home I paid to keep standing. Mom's eyes filled with tears, the manipulative kind she'd always used to make me back down. We were going to pay you back. We just needed time. 3 years isn't time, Mom. It's a choice. And you chose to let me struggle while you threw parties for Naomi's accomplishments. You chose to let me carry everything alone while you told everyone she was the hero. Naomi finally found her voice, and it was shaking. Lucy, I swear I didn't know. Maybe you misheard. Maybe Mom didn't mean. But I wasn't listening anymore. I watched them scramble to reframe the story, to make it comfortable again, to shove the truth back into whatever box they'd kept it in all these years. And for the first time in my life, I didn't shrink to fit their version. I grabbed my coat from the back of the chair. Where are you going? Dad asked, his voice cracking. Home. My home. The one I could have bought years ago if I hadn't been paying for yours. I walked out. The cold Portland air hit my face, and my breath came out shaky, but not from regret. It was the shock of finally hearing myself speak up after 29 years of staying quiet. My hands were trembling when I got to my car. I sat there for a full 10 minutes, just breathing, waiting for the guilt to hit. It never came. That night, I went home, opened my laptop, and stared at the automatic payment screen. The one that had drained $2,300 from my account on the 15th of every month for 36 months. I clicked cancel. A little box popped up. Are you sure? My finger hovered over the button. 36 months. $82,800. That's what I'd given them. That's what they'd erased. I clicked yes. For the first time in 3 years, my bank account didn't drain on the 15th. And the silence from my parents was deafening. No call. No text. Nothing. For 3 days, I kept checking my phone, part of me expecting the apology that never came. On the 4th day, I stopped checking. I started running in the mornings, just to quiet the shaking in my hands. But soon, it became something more. It became freedom. Every step along the river felt like proof that I could exist outside of their story. I joined a cooking class at the community center, learned how to make fresh pasta from scratch, laughed with strangers who didn't know anything about my family and didn't need to. I went on weekend hikes with coworkers who'd been inviting me for years. I'd always said no before, Friday dinners, family obligations. But now I said yes. I started building a life that didn't revolve around earning approval I was never going to get. And then, 2 weeks after I walked out, I got a text from Mrs. Reiner, my parents' elderly neighbor who'd watched me grow up. She sent me a photo. My childhood home. With a banner stretched across the front porch. Congratulations, Naomi, for preserving the family home. I stared at that photo until my vision blurred. Every late-night transfer. Every sacrifice. Every time I ate noodles for dinner so I could make that payment. Every time I told myself family first. All of it erased. Rewritten. Like I'd never been there at all. I didn't cry. I walked to my dining table, pulled out the folder where I'd kept every payment record from the last 3 years, and started organizing them. Date by date. Month by month. Bank statements, confirmation emails, text messages. It looked less like paperwork and more like proof of everything they'd tried to erase. That's when my cousin Melanie called. Lucy, she whispered, like she was afraid someone might hear. I think you should know, your parents are planning a family appreciation dinner next month in Seattle. They asked me to make a slideshow. For Naomi. My stomach dropped. Of course they are. It's worse than that, Melanie said quietly. They want to highlight her as the reason the house was saved. They gave me captions to use. They're calling her the anchor of the family. Lucy, I don't feel right about this. Anchor. Savior. Hero. All words I'd earned but never received. Send me the file, I said. Melanie hesitated. Are you sure? I don't want to make things worse. I'm very sure. Send it. When the slideshow arrived in my email an hour later, I opened it and actually laughed. Photos of Naomi standing proudly in front of the house. My parents hugging her on the porch. A shot of her holding up keys like she'd bought the place herself. Captions like thank you, Naomi, for keeping our family home safe and our daughter, our hero, our anchor. I made a copy of the file. And I added what they'd erased. After their final slide, a family photo with Naomi in the center, I inserted a new section. A timeline showing 36 months of payments. Bar charts. Bank statements with my name highlighted. Screenshots of my mom's messages, blurred for privacy but clear in meaning. Just this month, Lucy. We'll handle it next month. Don't tell anyone, we don't want them to worry. And on the last slide, I added a photo of the house with simple text, the truth deserves a place too. I saved it to my laptop, backed it up to the cloud, and put a copy on a USB drive I kept in my bag like a lifeline. Then I did something I'd been putting off for months. I applied for apartments in Seattle. Not Portland. Seattle. 2 hours away. Far enough that Friday dinners wouldn't be expected. Far enough to breathe. 3 weeks later, I signed a lease. The apartment had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline, hardwood floors that creaked in the right way, and most importantly, it was mine. All mine. No sacrifices required. No invisible payments draining my account. Just me, finally choosing myself. I bought a gray sofa, a small oak table, one tall bookshelf, plants that I actually kept alive. For the first time in my life, I walked into a space that belonged entirely to me, built by money I'd earned and kept for myself. And then, the day after I moved in, the invitation came. A text from my mother. Short. Direct. No warmth. Family appreciation dinner. Saturday, 7 p.m. Belltown Restaurant. Dress nicely. No explanation. No apology. No acknowledgement of the 2 weeks of silence. I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to block their numbers and move on with my new life. But another part of me, the part that had stayed quiet for 29 years, needed to finish this. I texted back, "I'll be there." When Saturday came, I didn't dress to impress them. I dressed for myself. Simple black dress, my favorite boots, hair down. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. She looked stronger somehow. More solid. Like she'd finally stopped apologizing for taking up space. The restaurant in downtown Seattle glowed with soft amber lights. Through the glass windows, I could see everyone already inside. My parents at the head of a long table, Naomi in an emerald dress holding court, relatives I hadn't seen in years all gathered around. I stood outside for a moment, watching the scene I'd been written out of. My father stood up and took the microphone someone had set up at the front of the room. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he said, his voice warm and proud. "We're here to honor our daughter Naomi, the one who stepped up during one of the most difficult times in our family's history. The one who helped us keep the home that's been in our family for decades. The one who proved what it means to be there when it matters most." Applause. Smiles. Cameras flashing. I felt my jaw tighten. The slideshow started on a screen they'd set up in the corner. Naomi on the porch, looking confident and capable. Naomi holding papers, playing the role perfectly. Naomi next to Mom, both of them smiling like they'd conquered the world together. Caption after caption, painting a story that wasn't real. I pulled out my phone and opened the app that connected to the restaurant's display system, the same system I'd called ahead and gotten access to by claiming I was helping with the family presentation. One click. The screen flickered. Naomi's smiling face disappeared. A bar chart appeared. Then another. Then dates. Then payment amounts. Then bank statements. 36 months of financial support, mine, spread across the screen in perfect, undeniable clarity. The room went silent. You could hear someone's glass hit the table. A fork clatter against a plate. My parents froze, their faces draining of color. Naomi's mouth fell open, her hand dropping from where it had been mid-gesture. I stepped forward into the light, walking through the door I'd been standing outside of. Every head in the room turned to look at me. "If the truth makes anyone uncomfortable tonight," I said, my voice steady and clear, "that's not my problem." My father looked at me like I was a ghost he never expected to see. Mom's face crumpled, not in shame, but in fear of being exposed. I walked toward the screen, my heels clicking against the hardwood floor. "For 3 years, I paid the mortgage on that house," I said, looking around the room at all those familiar faces. "Not 1 month. Every month. $2,300. For 36 months. That's $82,800. While working full-time. While putting off my own dreams. While you all," I gestured to my parents, told everyone how Naomi saved the day. An aunt I hadn't seen in years gasped. "Lucy, we had no idea." "No one did," I said. "Because they asked me not to tell anyone. Said it would be embarrassing. Said it was temporary. Said Naomi had enough stress." I looked at my sister. "But it was never about protecting you, was it? It was about protecting their image." Dad tried to speak, his voice shaking. "Lucy, we should take this outside. This isn't the place." "Why?" I asked, and I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. You wanted everyone here to celebrate what Naomi did. Why shouldn't they know what I did? Or does the truth only matter when it makes you look good? Whispers spread through the room like wildfire. I knew something was off. She was always so busy. 3 years? She paid all that? And they gave Naomi the credit? Naomi stood there, trembling, her perfect image cracking. I didn't ask them to do this. I swear I didn't know. You thought nothing, I said, and my voice was calm. Matter of fact. You didn't ask questions. You didn't wonder why they suddenly didn't need help anymore. You just enjoyed being the hero in a story that was never yours. Mom finally found her voice, and it was desperate. Lucy, please. We didn't want to embarrass you by making you seem like... Like what? I cut her off. Like I mattered? Like I was capable? Like I was the daughter who showed up when it counted? The room was so quiet you could hear people breathing. For the record, I said, turning back to face everyone, I don't want the house. I don't want repayment. I don't even want credit. I just won't let you erase me. Not anymore. I looked at my parents one last time. I'm done making myself smaller so you can feel better about the choices you made. Then I turned and walked toward the door. Dad reached out, his hand shaking. Lucy, please wait. We can talk about this. But I didn't wait. I stepped outside into the cool Seattle night, and the air hit my lungs like freedom. Behind me, I could hear voices rising. Arguments starting. The careful story they'd built collapsing. But I kept walking. This wasn't revenge. It was release. 2 days later, someone knocked on my apartment door. I looked through the peephole and saw them. My parents. Standing in my new hallway, looking smaller and older than I'd ever seen them. Part of me wanted to pretend I wasn't home. But I opened the door. They stepped inside slowly, taking in my apartment, the windows, the books, the life I'd built without them. Mom spoke first, and her voice was different, quieter. Lucy, we're sorry. The words sounded foreign coming from her mouth. We were wrong, Dad added, and I could see how hard it was for him to say it. We shouldn't have let the story become something it wasn't. We shouldn't have asked you to carry so much alone. We shouldn't have. He trailed off, like the list was too long to finish. Mom's hands were shaking. We want to make it right. We want to put your name on the house. We want to pay you back. I don't need it, I said, and I meant it. I have a home now. My own. What I needed was respect. Honesty. To be seen. You can't put those things on a deed. They fell silent. The truth sat between us, heavy and real. I'm not angry anymore, I said quietly. But I'm done disappearing to make you comfortable. If we rebuild anything, it has to start from that. From me being visible. From me mattering. Not just when it's convenient. Mom nodded, tears streaming down her face. Real ones this time. Dad looked at the floor. We understand. Do you? I asked. Because understanding means change. Real change. Not just apologizing when you get caught. We'll do better, Mom whispered. If you'll let us try. I looked at them, these people who'd raised me, who'd hurt me, who'd taught me that love came with conditions I could never quite meet. Maybe, I said. But it starts with the truth. All of it. No more pretending. No more rewriting history to make yourselves feel better. They nodded. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever, not completely. But it was an opening. A crack in the wall. A place where honesty could finally live. When they left, I walked to my balcony and looked out over the Seattle skyline. The city lights blinked against the dark, and I realized something. For 29 years, I'd been waiting for them to see me. But I'd finally learned to see myself. And that was enough. I stood there long after they left, watching the city breathe below me. For years, I thought keeping the peace meant keeping quiet. I thought being the good daughter meant swallowing every hurt, every slight, every erasure. But silence doesn't protect you. It erases you. Choosing myself didn't break my family. It finally broke the story that kept me small. The story that said my worth was measured by how little space I took up, how quiet I stayed, how much I could give without asking for anything back. That story was a lie. And I'm done living inside lies, even comfortable ones. The truth is messy. It's uncomfortable. It doesn't fit neatly into the narrative people want to tell about themselves. But it's mine. And I'm finally brave enough to speak it. Thanks for listening, and if you liked this story, share it with others, and don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about finding your voice, standing your ground, and rewriting what family means on your own terms. The truth doesn't need permission to exist, it just needs someone brave enough to speak it.